So, Johnathan, you travelled over to Ireland for the trial of Marianne Smyth, an old friend and foe of yours. Was she surprised to see you?
Oh, I'm sure she was, but she is such a professional con woman that she had a poker face the entire time, even more than a poker face. And again, I said this to my reaction when the verdict came down as guilty. You know, the jury deliberated for 17 or 18 minutes and found her guilty in all counts. But going to court day after day, watching her as the victims testified and as the prosecutor presented the case, she didn't move. She didn't twitch. She didn't scratch her nose or her eye, or she didn't cross her legs. She didn't shift. She seemed like a mannequin. And to me, it was just evidence. What I suspected all along is true, that she is not human as we understand a human being to be.
Did she ever make eye contact with you?
No, she didn't make eye contact with anyone. She stared straight ahead, a little below to where the judge was sitting. She never stared directly at the judge. She stared like below and just face straight, didn't move. It was unseemly. And the victims, you know, as soon as I got to court, all the victims recognized me immediately. So I was worried about flying to Northern Ireland for the trial, because I was told I might not be allowed in the courtroom because her lawyer was trying really hard to get the case dismissed on the grounds that my podcast, Queen of the Con, is preventing her from getting a quote unquote fair trial. So because of this publicity, you know, dismiss the case. So I was told that the judge might not allow me in the courtroom, that I should ask if I go. I should ask before I enter because I don't want to cause a problem. So I got to the courthouse. I entered and I'm in the lobby area, and it's this courthouse from like the 1600s. It's like one of the oldest courthouses in Ireland. It's in Downpatrick.
Yes.
And the history is just choking. It's thick with history. And as soon as I get in, one of the victims is like, that's the guy. That's why we're here. That's the guy. And they all kind of crowd around me and hug me and thank me. And we had that amazing moment. And I felt, you know, at one with them. So I asked permission, and the judge grants permission, and the prosecutor and the defense say it's okay if I go in the courtroom, just don't make any noise and don't cause a problem. I'm like, absolutely, going to be quiet, not going to hear me. So I get in and I'm sitting, you know, I want to sit by myself, but the victims insist I sit with them. You're one of us, they tell me. So I sit with the victims, and one of the victims, because Marianne wouldn't look in the direction of the victims. She's like 8 feet away, right? She's 8 feet away in front of us, but she's not turning to look at us. So one of the victims made it a point, and I didn't understand what she was doing, but then she explained it. She kept saying, Johnathan, blah, 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 Johnathan. She kept calling my name out. And I'm like, why are you calling my name? She's like, I want Marianne to hear that you're here. I want her to know you're right behind her. Johnathan, she kept saying.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure she knows I'm here because her attorney gave permission for me to come into the courtroom. And so it was a surreal experience. And as soon as the verdict was read, after, 3 days of testimony, gut-wrenching testimony, every victim that testified cried. And how could they not? When the
let's
verdict
just
came
explain
down,
what that was about. She had lived in Ireland for a period of time, and between 2008 and 2010, she posed as a mortgage advisor, and she stole quite a lot of money. £100,000 is what was described in court, and many of these people were friends of hers in Northern Ireland. She fled to the US, where she posed, among other things, as a fake heiress, which is how you came across her, and you sort of have, with your journalistic and your production background, you turned your own story into a hugely successful podcast called Queen of the Con. I think we spoke on this podcast with you some years ago after it was released. And you have pursued her. And really, it's because of you that she ended up getting brought back to Ireland, extradited, to face trial in relation to these charges. These people believed that they were going to get borrowings, and they gave her money for deposits. That's correct?
It was a couple of different scams over there. She did work for a mortgage company, but she was stealing money. And I want to point out that the victims included in this case, in this trial, are just the tip of the iceberg. I've heard there are more than 24 victims who lost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds. I've heard some of them have IRA connections. Some of them it's money laundering for drug this or drug. Like I've heard a lot from a lot of people in the know. But prosecuting these cases is hard. Getting a willing victim who's going to go forward and go to trial is hard. So I think that culled a lot of the cases, and this is a specific 1.5, 2-year period that these victims come from. And yeah, part of it was they would want to get a mortgage, and she would get a mortgage and take the money. Another was people wanted to buy investment property, so she took the money and pretended, fake the paperwork to prove that you bought this property and now it's paying this rent. She even went so far as to make payments. So these people believed they were getting a rental income for a few months, and then it stopped, and then she disappeared. So, and it was gut-wrenching because one of the victims had 2 daughters, and how Marianne got into her life, she offered to babysit. She offered the services of her daughter, Chelsea, who was 10 or 11 at the time. My daughter can babysit for you. That's how she got in. This was a mother who worked and didn't have a lot of time, didn't have a lot of help. And eventually Mayor handled the mortgage, and this woman lost her house with her 2 daughters. She was out on the street, essentially. She had to, family had to take care of her. So it was variations in the mortgage, borrowing money, investment property, all the scams she did.
And like we've seen this again and again with con artists, sometimes they are promising to invest money from people who shouldn't have the money in the first place. So in a way, that's why they mightn't come forward. They mightn't feel that they're not going to have, a kickback from police if they do. In other cases, some of these con artists, their victims are just ashamed. They feel stupid and they don't want to come forward. They just want to bury this, to park it, to compartmentalize what's happened to them because they just feel ridiculous. And it's sort of the victim is not totally understood in cons.
I agree. And, proof that there was a God, a week before the trial, I've been writing this book for like 2.5 years now. A big publisher, Penguin Random House, paid me to write my book, Anatomy of a Con Artist, the 14 red flags to spot scammers, grifters, and thieves. But if you just search Anatomy of a Con Artist, it'll pop up. So the book was supposed to be, the book release kept getting pushed. The trial kept getting pushed independent of one another. And then a week before the trial, my book comes out. And I'm written up in The Guardian, in the Times London, like a bunch of people do articles about the book. And I am hopeful and I'm praying to God, even though I know they're not allowed to, I'm hoping everyone involved in this case in Northern Ireland is reading the book, because I lay out the crazy criminal exploits of not just how Marianne Smyth conned me in LA, pretending to be an Irish heiress, but we get into her childhood. She was running cons since she was a little girl. When she was in school, she was in high school, she would date college guys and tell them she's pregnant and then get abortion money. She did this dozens of times. When she was a little girl, she told her neighbors and her friends at school that she had cancer and needed money for cancer treatments. And this is before she moved to Northern Ireland. So I was hoping and praying, and I think my prayers were answered, that this book, the publicity, they would read the book, these jurors, even though they're told not to. I would, if I'm on a jury and the first thing the judge says, do not Google this case, I'm going home and Googling the case. It's like,
that's why you're never going to be on a jury now.
Well, I mean, this is why drugs are out of control. When you tell someone not to do something, you incentivize them to do it immediately. If I told you right now, whatever you do, don't look at those Emmy statues over my shoulder.
Yep.
You can't look away.
I just looked at them.
Exactly. So I know as soon as the judge said, do not Google the case, which she did say, I know they Googled, and I hope they found my book, and I hope they read it, and it's on audio or they listened to it, because they deliberated for 17 or 18 minutes. So that tells me they had no doubt. They had no doubt she was guilty of everything she was being accused of. No doubt.
So tell us how she came to be in Northern Ireland, when that was, and how quickly she began to set herself up as a very competent scam artist.
Yeah. So I met her after she moved out of Northern Ireland. She was on the run. She heard police were coming for her. She abandoned her house in Northern Ireland, a house I visited. I talked to the owner there, and he told me there's boxes and boxes of her stuff that he had to throw away, mail, bills. And for years, people were coming trying to get their money. This is why I'm telling you there's so many more victims than have been reported. He's telling me dozens and dozens of people were coming, looking for her, looking for their money. She ripped off a lot of people. But like you said earlier, most victims, don't go to police. And that's certainly what I found. So she was born in Bangor, Maine, and she was scamming early with the cancer scam and the pregnancy scam. And eventually her parents had enough and they kicked her out. She joined the military. She joined the Navy, the US Navy, as a corpsman is the position, that like an assistant in a hospital. She'd draw blood and whatever. And she started racking up felonies for fraud early, in Florida and in Tennessee. And this is where she meets, this is like the year 2000, 2001. Internet dating is new. Hard to imagine a time when that was the case, but that was the case. Internet dating was new. So she takes to the internet and she meets a local Northern Ireland guy named Stephen Smyth. He's a postal worker and he races greyhounds as a hobby. He loves greyhounds. So at that point, Mare, who did not have custody of her daughter, courts awarded custody to Mare's parents because she was an unfit mother. She lost custody of another daughter. So essentially, Mare tricks her parents and says, I'm going to bring Chelsea, my little baby daughter, to Northern Ireland for vacation. It was just supposed to be a vacation for 2 weeks. And then she takes Chelsea to Northern Ireland to meet Stephen Smyth. They get married very quickly thereafter. And she essentially kidnaps. That was not the arrangement. She's supposed to bring Chelsea back, but she's kidnapped Chelsea. And her parents were sort of fine with it because Stephen Smyth seemed to be like a good guy with a 9-to-5 job and a reputable person. And maybe this is a shot at a good life, they must have thought. And they didn't really, put up a fight. So that's how she got to Northern Ireland. This is around 2002. And immediately she starts getting into the mortgage industry. She'd worked for a couple different mortgage financial type companies, and she landed at a big one. And that's where she eventually scammed the people involved in this latest case with investment. Some people, she said she had this investment that could pay 13% a year, and they would give her the money, and she would make some of the interest payments. And this is one of the red flags I write about in my book, Anatomy of a Con Artist. It is red flag number 8, beak wetting. Con artists will let you wet your beak, as the expression goes. You'll see some money. When Mare scammed me, I'd loaned her close to $5,000 and she paid me back the next day. That made me confident to loan her more. And in these cases these scams she's pulling in Northern Ireland, she's giving them these interest payments. She's wetting their beak. So that lulls them into the sense of, oh, this is legitimate, so they don't worry. And a lot of times, they'll give her more money to invest because they think it's working. And that's the plan. Beak wetting is very powerful. So eventually, in 2009, early 2009, somebody tips Mare off that police are looking into her. I think one of her victims called her and said, hey, the police came to see me. And at that point, within 24 hours, she left. She left in a hurry. And Chelsea, who was a teenager, tells the story in the Queen of the Con podcast. She says we didn't pack anything. We left the furniture, we left everything. And the 17 greyhound dogs that Stephen had, he asked her, what do I do with my dogs? And she told him, put them down. So he euthanized all the dogs. They left dead dogs and a full house, and they got on a plane and they went to Tennessee. They flew to Tennessee. And this was 2009. And then she didn't pop up in Los Angeles until 2011. And then I didn't meet her until 2013. So she was hiding out in the United States. She'd left. She didn't stay long in Tennessee. She moved around a lot because, people in Northern Ireland were after her.
Mm-hmm. And do you know what excuse she gave Smith and how long he stayed with her in the States?
So I can't tell you how I know this, but I can tell you I know he eventually got fed up and they parted ways, and he went to live with her parents in Tennessee for a while. and then he eventually flew back to Northern Ireland. And from what I hear, he had like a mental breakdown. He was institutionalized. And I could, I got scammed by her. She posed as my best friend, my sister, essentially. We would end phone calls with, I love you, I love you. Like, I really loved her as much as any gay man can love a woman. I loved her like family. And it devastated me when I found out, that she was just using me to scam me and made all this up. I can only extrapolate and imagine what he must have felt. Like, he married her. He loved her. The lies that she must have told him, I can't even begin to imagine. And then to find out he went crazy. He was institutionalized for a few years. And then he's actually the reason that she got extradited. Here's what happened. And I tell the story in the book, but it's new to everyone else who hasn't read my book, Anatomy of a Con Artist. But again, it just proves to me that there's a God or some force guiding me to do this work. So when Mare and I were best friends, she had a panic 2 years into our friendship. She was stuck in traffic and she couldn't log in to her email account. So she called me up. I was at work and she's like, I think someone hacked my account. I can't log in on my phone. I can't log in. So she gave me her password and I logged in and I said, it's fine. Just restart your phone. I'm sure that'll fix it. And it did. And I forgot that happened. 2 years later, after I realized she scammed me, I'm sitting watching the news on a Sunday morning, sipping coffee. And I remember, oh my God, I have her is that her password? Is it still the same? I got to check. I run over to my computer. The Mission Impossible music's beating in my head. Dun, 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 dun. And I'm like, and I'm typing. And sure enough, it is her password. And I log into her account and immediately I change her password and lock her out. And then I discover dozens of other fake accounts for all her Irish cousins that she told me existed. Tristan and Fintan and Dermot, like all these people had email accounts with the same password. I log into all of those accounts, change the password. I lock her out, right? So I start examining, perusing, investigating all of her emails, which, God, thousands and thousands and thousands. But one email I find is from, she has sort of an accomplice who lives in Tennessee, a woman who liked her and helped her scam people because it was fun. This woman sends Mare an email warning her, hey, your ex-husband, Stephen, is posting this, and she sent a screen grab on Facebook. Be careful. And the screen grab was from a Facebook post Stephen Smith posted on his page in Northern Ireland saying, if you know the whereabouts of Marianne Smyth, police are looking for her. She's done some horrible things. Call this number. Call the Northern Ireland police at this number. So I had that number now. And I called them immediately. I called them and I left a long message explaining who I am and I know where she is. She's living in LA. She just scammed me and police won't do anything. So maybe you can. So this was back in 2017. So that's when a detective from Northern Ireland called me. And that's when he said back in 2017, he's going to start extradition proceedings, which she's a US citizen. So the bar for extraditing a US citizen is very high. But over the course of, it took 7 years, 7 years. And the entire time I'm in contact with them. Every time I find a new con, a new scam, a new victim in America, I send it. I'm like, hey, when are you going to do it already? When's the extradition? He's like, we're working on it. It's a lot of paperwork, blah, blah, blah. So the straw that broke the camel's back, in my opinion. So, she gets convicted for scamming me in Los Angeles. She gets out early. She got a 5-year sentence. She got out in 2. She gets out. I don't know where she is. I start hearing from victims in Maine. She's my new neighbor. She just scammed me. I'm hearing from, she'll never stop scamming. So I start sending this Northern Ireland detective all this latest intel. So she starts a satanic church.
Right.
She changes her name to Lucia Belaya. And one of her victims sends me a video of one of her satanic ceremonies. And Mare, I have this video. Mare is dressed in a black robe. I'm Lucia Belaya, she says to the camera. She's wielding a giant silver machete. twinkling in the candlelight, reflecting. And she's like, Father Satan, I summon you. Like, I could not have directed or scripted this if I was trying to write a movie. Like, it's insane, the stuff she comes up with. So I have that video now, and I sent that video to Northern Ireland. I'm like, this is what she's doing now. And within months, there was a knock on her door. So she was living out of Airbnb rentals. She never established a permanent address because I guess she knew they'd be looking for her, and she was right. But one of her victims furnished me with her exact location, and I sent that address to Northern Ireland, and that's where they got her. That's where they got her.
And was the Satanic Church looking for donations, or was she somehow offering people to invest or something?
So she figured out, and again, part of me admires and marvels at the genius behind this idea. And the other part of me is angry at the sickness and depravity of it all. So she figured out a class of people she could scam who would never report her to police. They'd report her to me, but they're not going to, can you imagine a Satanist going, hi, I worship the devil and I was scammed by this other devil worshiper for this devil, no. So she started this website, and the website did the trick she intended. Let me ask you this question. Who do you think is reaching out to the devil for help?
I hope I don't know anyone.
Well, desperate people who've tried everything. Desperate people who've tried everything, and now they're going to reach out to the devil. So she was offering to cast spells and hoaxes and for people. And these are broken. I've spoken to one of these guys. I've done a welfare check on him. He got scammed out of, tens of thousands of dollars. I don't even know the amount. She took so much money from him that his bank froze his account because so much money was leaving weekly to her account. And they started an investigation. This guy has finally come around to talk to me. Before, he wouldn't talk to me. I sent police to check on him when he wasn't responding to anyone. And he told them to F off. She's helping me, he said. So it's this type of person who she's scamming, a broken person looking to cast demonic spells, which I know, again, there are victims that you don't feel sympathy for, where you're like, you deserve it. You worship the devil. But if you examine the life of this guy and the life of anyone who would turn to Satan for help, you'll see just a really broken person.
And vulnerable, no doubt. I mean, and some of these people can be very wealthy, and, this money can, as you say, leave their accounts until it's the banks, actually, rather than maybe family members or whatever that raise the flag. We're talking about she got 4 years. She's been in custody since February of 2024. She's essentially going to serve maybe another 6 months here, or thereabouts. And then she's going to be deported back to the US.
Yes, so that is my understanding.
She's heading your direction again.
Yes, and no one is safe. No one is safe. You want to hear the craziest thing? I heard from the mother of an inmate serving time with her right now. She was telling, and again, this is proof there's a God, and I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual, like everyone in LA. And I see these little God winks happen to let me know I'm on the right track, doing the right thing. That, the reason I got scammed was I was not only meant to stop her, which I did, and get her extradited, which I did, but I was meant to shine a light on how these people operate. And that's what my book does. Anatomy of a Con Artist, the 14 red flags. They all wave the same red flags. And I play this game with myself. It's a fun game. I say, if I met Marianne Smyth today, knowing what I know now, would I be able to tell she's a con artist? And the answer is unequivocally yes. Within the first 10 minutes of meeting her, she was waving all the red flags. She was red flag number 1. She just wanted to help. Red flag number 2, she was too kind, too quick. Red flag number 3, she had all this drama. Red flag number 4, she isolated me from other people who would tell me different stories about her. She had a good day job, another red flag. She moved around a lot, another red flag. She had so many stories from faraway places. Professional con artists know you with stories from faraway places. That was her whole shtick. Like, I've since investigated, I've become kind of an expert. I've investigated hundreds of other con artist cases because people, after my story went public, people reached out to me for help and advice of what to do with their con artist, and they want to put theirs in jail too, like I did. Can you help me? So some people play golf on the weekends. I hunt con artists. So immediately I started realizing, wait a minute, all the techniques that Mayor used on me, they're the same techniques every con artist uses on every victim. You know, and I identified 14 of them, and they're in the book. So the book is like Mayor's story.
The first 3 sound a little bit like love bombing.
Yes, they want to help you. They're too kind, too quick. They're paying for dinner. They're buying your gifts. They're going to watch your kids. They want to walk your dog. But if you don't know that's a sign, you'll think, oh, what a sweet, kind, lovely person. And you're going to like them immediately. And that's their plan.
And you say 14, we've spoken there about, I think, up to 7 of them. So what are the sort
of... Another red flag, technology. Yeah. Technology is a big one. Digital screens. A con artist will use a cell phone, a laptop, an iPad to sell you their story. They'll show you, look what so-and-so texted me. Look what so-and-so emailed me. Look, I logged into my bank account. There's a case I investigated in the book where this woman got scammed out of close to $1 million. And the guy who scammed, it was a love scam. This guy she was in love with, who she never met, but they always were going to meet. But then something came up. He was an oil and gas man, always in an emergency to put out a fire on this oil rig in the Indian Ocean. A lot of drama, a lot of stories from faraway places. But he created, and this is how convincing this con was, and this is why she fell for it. He created a bank website, and he called her one day and he said, listen, I'm stuck in the Indian Ocean. The internet's really bad here. I need to pay $5 million for this oil rig. Can you log into my bank account and make the payment for me? So he gave her his bank login credentials. She logged into what looked like a bank account. You know, like when you log into your bank, like you log in, password. She saw a balance of like $190 million, and she paid, you know. So again, these are 2 red flags. It's the TMI red flag I write about, red flag number 13, too much information. It's where con artists will tell you too much about themselves to make you think they trust you so you can trust them. So this woman logs in, and technology, he created a whole bank website that was fake, but it did the trick. It made her believe he had all this money. And that's how he scammed her out of close to $1 million. Like, so yeah, digital screens, that's another red flag. Another red flag, they move around a lot. Most regular people will move a total, it's probably less in the UK. In the United States, most people will move a total of 11 times. You'll have a total of 11 different addresses in your entire life. By the time I met Marianne Smyth, she had 46 different addresses. That is such a red flag. So unless you're working for the military and you're moved around a lot, there is no excuse to be moving 46 times unless you're always on the run.
And what about meeting people with a past with her, or sort of a con artist in general? Do you ever meet a human being? Okay, there may be people on screens or people on emails and that, but do you meet a human being that knows them deep into their past?
I mean, and this is another cautionary thing I write about in the book. Most people are under this false assumption that con artists are out there somewhere. And I say, no, you probably know a con artist right now. They just haven't scammed you yet. And the people they are scamming aren't talking about it. One of the craziest things to come out of my book was my own mother. My mother confessed to me that this woman I thought of as a childhood, as a friend of the family for years, this was a woman who would come to Christmas and holiday dinners with us and went on vacations with us. And she scammed my mother out of like $20-something thousand. And then my mother learned that she scammed everyone in the social circle out of more and more money. No one talked about it while it was happening. They only now are talking about it years later after the woman moved away. And my mother never told anyone this because, like you said earlier, it's embarrassing that you fell for these crazy stories. But my mom told me, and I'm telling you and your listeners, you know a con artist right now, they just haven't scammed you yet. They're working their way up to it. So...
And they sound as if they're really busy in their own mind with all that's going on and, you know, juggling all these balls, which most of them are scamming multiple people at the same time.
Absolutely.
So they need that.
And that is a criticism I hear a lot. People tell me, well, she only got 100,000 from you over 4 years. So what's that? 25,000 a year. So that's nothing. And I'm like, no. While she was scamming me, She had dozens of other victims. She impersonated a psychologist. She had a dozen clients paying her for therapy. And she's using the intimate details of their lives to scam them. She pretended to be a hockey coach for another scam, a child custody investigator for the courts for another scam. She had so many characters wheeling and dealing at the same time. She was scamming me. So she had money coming in from all sources. They all do.
So in all that, how does she have the time to build a relationship with you? And can she listen to what you have to say? Or is her mind, and perhaps we can talk about a general con artist, is the mind constantly racing? Are they forgetful of something intimate perhaps you have divulged? Or can they come back and ask you in a charming way, how are you feeling about that now?
I think there is a level of genius and brilliance that con artists have, like Mare, that regular people do not have. Because you and I would lose sleep over this. We'd be worrying, oh my God, I told this person this and this person this, and I got to be this over here. And now I'm a psychic, and now I'm a psychologist, and now I work for the court. Like, how do I, we'd lose our minds trying to keep it straight. Con artists are different. They enjoy that. They get off on that. It's like, us, we would ride a roller coaster and that'd be fun. This is fun for them. They love the challenge of keeping all the stories straight. They have photographic memories. They have great recall. They're super intelligent, They're and they know how to keep everything separate. I never saw her mess up once with me. Like until I realized that first lie, I never suspected a thing. I believed everything. And this is another thing I notice in talking to a lot of victims who call me for help. There's a certain kind of victim who is delusional, where they cannot accept that they were scammed. So even though they're calling me for help with a scam, they'll tell me things like, well, I knew something was off. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You gave them $100,000. You didn't know anything was off. Like, if you knew something was off, why'd you give them money? But it is so devastating that they can't accept their role in it. So they have to pitch it to themselves as, well, I knew something was up. I'm like, no, you didn't. I didn't know anything was up. I believed everything wholeheartedly and passionately in full. And I gave her my money. Like, if you suspect something's wrong, you're not going to give them your money. But it's just how hard it is to admit you were scammed, even to yourself. This is a thing I see again and again. And I have to remind myself to be patient and compassionate and not yell at these people, because it upsets me that in order to get justice, you have to admit there was a crime. And to admit there's a crime, you have to admit you're the victim. And you can't say, I knew she was scamming me, because no cop's going to take a police report if you knew it was a scam. Then you played along. It's crazy. But it's a psychology.
She obviously was very money hungry in all her scams. And, where is all the money gone? What did she spend it on? But other people who are con artists, money could be secondary. It's almost...
I would say for every con, including Mare, money is secondary. There are a lot of cons that Mare pulled that had nothing to do with money. And you would wonder, why would she? I'll tell you one of them. And this is still a head scratcher. Only if you're trying to ascribe money to everything. Con artists primarily con for the joy of it. It's fun for them. It makes them feel like God. They create these worlds and these characters that do not exist, and they watch with delight and glee as we all fall for it. They're making a movie, but they haven't told anyone, and we're all actors in their movie, but we don't know. So every time we say what they want us to say and we do what they want us to do, they get a thrill from it. So with Mare, there was one con she pulled on, and this is in the book, Tess. Tess is a producer in LA. And Mare had met Tess at some women empowering event, and they hit it off. And Mare started portraying immediately to Tess that she's good friends, best friends, with Jennifer Aniston, the actress. Now, most people are thinking, that's a crazy story. You don't know Jennifer. Who would know Jennifer Aniston? Well, we're producers in Los Angeles. So I know a lot of A-list actors. I know Renee Zellweger. I can't tell you how I know her. I can't arrange a meeting, but I know her. I could show you texts from her. But because I work in LA, these are people, like we're all producers. So it's not such a crazy story. But in this case, Mare was fabricating it, right? So over the course of months, every time Mare would hang out with Tess, she would talk about and Jennifer Aniston this and Jennifer Aniston that. And then she'd show Tess text messages purportedly from Jennifer Aniston, when really it was the red flag of technology I read about. She created a Google account to text herself as a character named Jennifer Aniston. So when the text popped up on her phone, it said Jennifer Aniston. So you would think it's Jennifer Aniston texting. And Tess really did believe she's friends with Jennifer Aniston. Plot thickens. The Golden Globes are coming up. And Mayer says to Tess, Jennifer Aniston said I can bring someone with her to the Golden Globes. Do you want to come with me to the Golden Globes? And Tess was excited, like she's a producer. The Golden Globes, she's never been. This is the pinnacle of Hollywood. Oh my God, yes. So Tess is excited. Tess goes and gets a dress and starts getting ready that morning for the Golden Globes, only to get a last-minute text from Mayer saying, hey, Jennifer Aniston is not feeling well and she just wants to be alone this year, so I'm going to have to renege the invitation. So, no Golden Globes. And, Tess was upset and she put her dress away and, she might have cried a little. But then after she realized Mayer's a con artist and this was all a con, Tess asked me, like, what was the point of all of that? I never gave her money. She wasn't asking for money. What was the point of this weeks-long Jennifer Aniston Golden Globes thing? And I have learned, investigating tons of cases, it just thrills them. Not every con's about the money, but every con is about power and control and creating a world that's not real and watching the victim react. They feel like they're pulling strings. The puppet master.
The thrill is in the trick and just watching that. And she isn't at the end of her game, you'd believe. She's 56 now, is that right?
Yes, and she is smarter, more clever than she's ever been. She was telling people in prison, I heard this from the mother of an inmate, that her name was Maxine. So prison in Northern Ireland is different than in the United States, sadly, in this case. Prison in Northern Ireland, from what I hear from the mother of the inmate, and I was over there talking to lawyers and stuff, it's very humane, almost too humane, I would wager. You're allowed to wear your own clothes. You're allowed to do your hair and nails. You're not behind bars. You're in like a dormitory, like a camp. Your family can visit and bring food and have parties. So a mother of one of the inmates contacted me and said, I heard from my daughter, now we know who she is thanks to your podcast, but initially she was telling everyone her name is Maxine, and she's in there because her husband was guilty of some IRA thing, some atrocity that they're trying to blame her for. So she's still bringing in the IRA con into prison in Northern Ireland.
Might be such a good idea, that.
I know. But one of the inmates heard the guard call her by her real name, Marianne Smyth. And apparently they have internet access. So they Googled and they found my podcast. So now the entire population of the women's prison over there listening to Queen of the Con, they know who she is. Mm-hmm. She's been ostracized and made fun of. But it just goes to show that you asked, well, she's 56 now. Yeah, she's still conning. She's never going to change. And right when they extradited her, right when they arrested her in Maine, she had conned this elderly woman out of thousands and thousands of dollars. So much money, they won't even give me a number. When I first made contact with the woman's son, he was adamant. No, she never took any money. No, she never took any money. But I'm like, but she was spending a lot of time with your mother. I find it hard to believe that she's spending months and months as your mother's best friend and she's not getting anything. That doesn't make any sense. And eventually the mother, the old woman, she's like 78, admitted, yeah, she got a lot of money, but I don't have a number. And that was right when they extradited her. So she will never change. And she just gets better and better.
Finally, Johnathan, has she got funds squirreled away somewhere? Has she got millions and millions somewhere in a bank account? And does she aspire to a lifestyle at any point? Or is she just somebody who is dogged by these compulsions to swindle, to scam, and as you say, to sort of direct her own movie?
I think the latter. I don't think she has a lot. I think she has some money stashed away. I don't think a lot of money, but I think she just lives for the next con. She handles money poorly. And I think because her mentality is, and maybe rightfully so, spend it before they take it from me. So when she was flush with money from Northern Ireland, she got to Tennessee with Stephen Smith. They went on buying sprees. They went on lavish vacations. They spent a fortune on vacations. And she started giving money away. Her daughter, that the courts took from her as a baby, was 18 years old at this point. Courtney's her name. And she started giving Courtney a few $1,000s a month for a year. And then the payment stopped. And then she disappeared again. And in LA, when she stole $200,000 from the travel agency, she moved out of my building and moved into this lavish apartment for triple the price. It was like $7,000 a month in rent. And, I thought she's this Irish heiress. So to me, that tracked, but she was really just trying to shed the money she stole, I imagine, before they confiscate it, And then she threw this this is crazy. She threw this gigantic party. It cost like $30,000, catered, entertainment, bar. She rented out the penthouse of the building. She was just beautiful. And we went to that party. I still have pictures. And later I would find out the reason she told me she's throwing that party is she wants to celebrate, all her new clients and her success, and to celebrate this. I found out later she told some people it was her birthday. And she told some people it was to celebrate new clients. She had different stories for this party, but it just appeared now, looking back, as soon as she gets a lot of money, she tries to spend it before they take it from her, I think, is the conceit.
Or she's no value for it or whatever. It's different.
None.
Yeah.
Why is one through earnings? Yeah.
Well, look, a fascinating story as always. And Anatomy of a Con Artist sounds like we should all read that and equip ourselves. In particular, as we're talking, I'm thinking of, the things that these con artists would be able to do with AI. I mean, they no longer have to show us a text. They can, manipulate a voice or whatever else they can do with it. And also Queen of the Con remains a fantastic podcast, still flying high.
Thank you.
So, and you will continue to stalk, Marianne or Mayor Smyth, the name she went with in California, is her worst nightmare really is you, because you keep her face out there in the media and you keep telling the story about her.
I do, and it pleases me, and I write this in the book. I'm sure that when we met, me getting scammed by her was the last thing on my mind. But I'm also sure the last thing on her mind was that I'd be the one putting her in jail twice. So it pleases me.
Yeah.
It pleases me, And I've gotten some great feedback from people who read the book thanking me. There's this one woman who left me a review on Amazon, and I posted it on my website because I was so moved by it. And it's exactly what I was hoping to accomplish. She said, "Thank you. I was dating this guy while reading your book, and he was waving 11 of the 14 red flags. And then he asked for money with a crazy emergency, and I cut him off. I knew what was happening. Thank you." And that's my life's work now. I want to stop cons from happening. And I believe I can, because they're all using the same playbook that's been around for thousands of years. We're all human beings. They are experts at using our human nature against us, and they use all these techniques. So if you learn what the flags are, learn what the techniques are, the minute they start adding up, if you see 3 or 4 of these red flags, run. 1, you're okay. 2, you're okay. 3, you're more than 3 red flags, you're probably dealing with a professional scammer.
Just intriguing. Well, Johnathan Walton, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.